Let us do Pirkei, Avos, the fifth Perek. Okay, here we go. We are up to Mishna. We did anger yesterday. We did Mahir Lishmaya. I think we're up to Tesvav. Arba midas v'talmidim. No. So we did that. Arba midas v'noisnis, like we're up to Tezayin. There are four midas, there are four different categories of people who like to give tzedakah. Somebody who says, I want to give, but I don't want other people to give. His eyes are raw. In other words, that means that he has a bad eye, meaning he doesn't want them to benefit. Now, what does that mean? Which achirim? So first of all, it shows that he appreciates the concept of tzedakah. I want to give. Now, we're not talking about a guy who wants to give just because he's going to get covered, because then he doesn't really want to give. He just wants to get covered. You know how they have these people, they go around at dinners with a video camera, like, how much are you going to give? So then people want to give more, so people will see them giving. Or all these people who give to political causes. It's just, there's no reason I'm giving to the political cause any more than because I need to buy power and I need to buy pull. So that's the only reason people donate to a political cause. But you're gonna buy. You think this person's gonna win. You think it's gonna buy you something. So that's obviously not what we're talking about, because then it's not called tzedakah. We're talking about a guy who wants to give because he wants to give, but he doesn't want other people to give. So that means, you have this famous story of a guy in Brisk. Nothing against Brisk, but it's a joke. But this guy comes in and he's like, I have the best ani, the most mahududika ani, and I'm able to be Mekai Matanas La'avyonim B'chol Adayas. He's mamish, he doesn't have a cent to his name. And I gave him the money on Purim, it was Givaldik. So everybody's like, well, where is he? Let me go help him out. He's like, no, I don't want to tell you where he is because I want to use him for next Purim. So you have these guys who, that's mamish this case. I want to do tzedakah because I like tzedakah, but I don't care because I know how it helps me. I know how it helps, how it's a mitzvah from Hashem. So he appreciates the concept of tzedakah. I recognize it. He appreciates the concept of tzedakah, but he's ignoring the fact that he wants the world to be a better place. I don't want other people to do it. I want to be the one so that's Ein Rabbi Shel Acherim. Yitnu Acherim v'hu lo yitin. If you want other people to give, then, but not myself, that's Ein Rabbi Shel. You have a bad eye for yourself. What does this mean? This means that you don't appreciate tzedakah. I feel bad for the poor guy. I see a guy collecting every day on Divan. He's so cold. I feel bad for him, but I'm not going to do anything. So there, you're missing the boat by yourself. What does that mean, Ein Rabbi Shel? Why is it Ein Rabbi Shel? What does that mean? That means you just don't want to give tzedakah. The answer is no. If you don't want to give tzedakah, that means you're not helping yourself. Because when a person gives tzedakah, the main person he's helping is himself. If you're ever in a really bad mood, you know what to do? This is more for girls than for boys. But you take a bunch of flowers and you go to a mall and you start handing out flowers to each person. Just say, Happy Sunday, and people smile at you, and you smile at them, and boom, within half an hour, you're in a better mood. A guy can't do that because then people are like, these things are either filled with anthrax or whatever. But if you are, so you have to think of your own idea to benefit somebody else. But if you benefit somebody else, then you feel better, you are better, you become a better person. So if you only care about the guy in Divan, but you don't care that you want to help him, so it's nice that you want other people to help him. You say, you want to give him money? Sure, that's a great idea. It's Ein Ra, so you don't want people to suffer and you want other people to do mitzvahs, but you have Ein Ra b'shaloi. You have a bad eye about yourself. You have to improve yourself because you yourself gain so much from tzedakah. The biggest person to gain from tzedakah is the guy who gives it himself. That's the guy who gives himself, besides the fact that he's buying oilam haba. Much more than that. He's improving his midas. He is gaining. And besides the fact that he's gaining, his mood is also better. If he wants both, that he should give and other people should give, meaning I want to give tzedakah because I want to improve myself, and not only that, I want to take away aniyim from the world. I'm not giving, nor do I want anybody else to give. It's each man for himself. That is, again, Meister Sedoim, and that's a Russia. Yudzayin. Arba midas v'hoche beis medrash. There are 4 types of people who go to the beis medrash. Hoylech ve'eino oiseh. A guy who goes and he doesn't learn. Schar halicha biyadeh. At least he gets schar halicha. There is a mila in being in the beis medrash. Obviously not if you're disturbing, and obviously not if you're going ahead and you're ruining things. But a guy goes to the beis medrash and he doesn't gain, he still gets schar halicha. He tries. Oiseh ve'eino oilech. A guy who goes, who learns, but he doesn't go to the beis medrash. Schar ma'isa biyadeh. He has the schar of learning, but he doesn't have the schar of going. And you get much more schar of going, besides the fact that it's besides there's so much more to gain from other people. These are chassid, these are Russia. I remember a couple years ago somebody asking a shaila on this Mishna. We had it came with a geshmaka mahalach in this Mishna, and I tried to remember it, but I don't remember the shaila or the conversation. So we'll leave it at that. A couple of ha'aras on the Mishnah is that there's called the arba midas v'hoche beis medrash. There are 4 people who go to a beis medrash, and 2 of them didn't go. So there are 2 midas about those who go to beis medrash. It's interesting that they're called, the one who doesn't go but learns is called a hoylech beis medrash. Okay, arba midas b'yoshim l'fnei chachamim. There are 4 people, 4 different types of people who sit in front of them, the chachamim. A sfoig, which is a sponge. A mashpech, which is like a funnel. A mishameres, which is like a sifter. And napa is a sieve. Sfoig is somebody who's spongy, who soaks everything up. Shusevik, as I call it. He gets everything from the Rebbe. Even the vertlach, even the good stuff. He gets the occasional bad stuff. He's mamish, a Talmud of the Rebbe. Then there's the mashpech, the guy who's a funnel. In it goes one ear and out the other. He gains nothing from the Rebbe. Shemachlis bazu u'moitzi bazu, goes in one ear, out the other. There's the mishameres. Now, mishameres is this cloth that you put over a wine barrel, and you pour the wine through the cloth, and the wine drips down, and the sediments stay on the top. So and you let all the good stuff go, because let's say so this is the guy who goes to shiur to hear the occasional, not to hear not even necessarily the occasional, thing, but to hear the occasional zog. You know how many people go to shiur to hear Rav Yeshua say a line or whatever. Those type of he's going to shiur not to get the Torah, he's going to shiur just to get the the occasional gishmaka raid or the occasional line against somebody else or whatever. So all in l'shem shemayim, but he gets only the bad stuff, and he gets the stories. He misses the ikra shiur. And then there's the napa, which is the mishamoitzi esakemach v'kerletus esoseilas. He only takes the good stuff, but he doesn't take he only takes the fine flour. He takes the fine flour. He leaves out the main flour, a sifter. So there's different 4 types of people. It doesn't say which one is better, which one is worse. There are 4 types. You test any love that is dependent on something is batel davar. If that item goes away, it's betela ava. The love goes away. If it's not totally on something, it will never become batel ever. What is considered a love that is dependent on an item? This is the love that Amnon had for Tamar. Tamar was a pretty girl. Amnon loved pretty girls, and Amnon went and basically raped Tamar. And as soon as the act was finished, he hated her. And so we see that what was it Talian? It was Talian his lust. As soon as that feeling went away because he was Mekayim it, he no longer felt love for her. If it's not dependent on anything, now this is the love of David and Yonasan. Now, of course, what would be if Yonasan came to David and started spitting on him and saying, I hate you, I hate you? Eventually, David's love would run out. It just means that there's nothing external that I am loving. Because if you love something external, then you don't love the item, you love yourself. Example, a guy, but it's still love. A guy goes ahead and goes on a date, gorgeous girl, and he falls in love with her. Is that love? That is love. People mistakenly say over the vart, like you're infatuated, there's no love. It is love. It's a love that's teluya b'davar. You do feel real, intense love. What do you love about the person? The fact that you imagine that she's going to give you what you need and what you want. So it's totally b'davar. I want something, and the thing that I want, I'm getting what I want, either honor, but it's all for me. So I love that person because I'm getting something out of him or her. As soon as the thing you're getting out of him or her stops, I'm no longer going to love that person. People, it doesn't even have to be, there's something called Hanifa, which is, that's totally fake. You have this rich guy and everybody fawns over him. Oh, amazing. He says a joke, everybody says, great joke. The guy, you know why rich people are so bombastic? And because they honestly think they're funny. Everything they say, people laugh. If you have this happen to you for 20 years straight, then you start to think you actually are the smartest guy in the world. People are asking you for Mideast policy. They're asking you, what do you think if North Korean guy is dead or not? Anything you say, people accept. Now, do you know behind your back that they're laughing at you? Maybe, but people automatically close that up. You can't blame these people for thinking they're the smartest people in the world, because anything they say, everybody else gobbles up. Why? Because people are always fawning and like to be around rich and famous people. So that's why. Now, that's not a real love. That's right now, I need to be next to this rich guy, because as soon as I'm next to this rich guy, either I feel important or I'm planning on getting a check from him one day or whatever. It's time to invest and laugh at his jokes. You like the rich people. Of course, they become a bit off because they think they're the funniest people in the world when really they're just saying below standard grade jokes, and everybody's laughing at the below standard grade jokes. They say a joke and they're laughing their heads up, and everybody's like, okay, how long is this meeting gonna last? So Lamaisa, that's the way they're approached. That is not even love. That is just an investment. I need to get my check, so I better just put up with this guy for the next half an hour. Great joke, that was amazing. Man, you are funny. You are one funny guy. So Lamaisa, that's the way people act when they're around rich people. That's not even what we're talking about. Because that's just faking. That's called chanufa. It's a different midah. Midah ra, ad ma'oid. It's a terrible midah. Unfortunately, it happens a lot. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about somebody who, if an emes loves the person, but the only thing you love from the person is what you plan on getting. So a classic example of this is a guy when he's first married. Because he hardly knows the girl. He went out with her 8 times, b'chulu. In huge, deep, and they're very deep feelings that this guy's never felt before. The fact that he's walking in the stars is an ahava that is dependent, because he's so excited, his physical excitement is so excited that he invents a love about her. So he really loves her, but it's dependent on getting something out of her. And if a person really loves his friend because he gets covered, eventually you get to like these rich people, only because it's dependent on, hey, he's my best friend. Every time I'm around, I become famous because I'm next to him. If you're Michael Jordan's lawyer, so then you become famous. You become famous because, and you like that. So Mamela, you like him, but really you like yourself. That's really what's happening. I'm liking the thing that I get out of him. So Mamela, as soon as that thing stops, I no longer like the guy. However, if you have an Ava that is not dependent on something I'm getting out of him, we're just good friends, so Kozman, that friendship remains. Of course, the guy still has to like me, and if he suddenly kicks me in my shin and says, get away, then obviously I'm not going to stop liking him anymore. I'm going to stop liking him, of course. I mean, I might be very hurt, but of course, it doesn't mean that you're going to tell me that it's impossible not to love anybody. Of course, you can break up with such a relationship. The point is that I don't have anything that is dependent on. So even if I'm getting something out of the person, the love will remain. So now when a person gets married, his job is to take this gift that Hashem gave him, which is lust, which every man is blessed with, and turn that lust into real love. Nobody's complaining if you're first married and you lust after your wife. Either of you should. But you have to take that lust and turn it into real love by spending time together, by learning to appreciate her deeper, by learning to appreciate the real her, and turn that love into lust-based love, into a love-based love. And then, even if the lust were to stop, for whatever reason, there would still be an underground love. So it doesn't mean that if there's something coming to you out of the relationship, let's say the lust remains. It's great lust until 40 years old. That's amazing. Adarabah. That just, it's more help from Hashem in creating a real love. And Mamela, it's not totally in a davar. You might be getting it, but it's not dependent on that. When David was with Yonasan, David and Yonasan, did David get something out of being friendly with Yonasan, the king's son? I'm sure he did. He was friendly with the king's son. That's the prince. If you're friendly with the prince, you get something out of it. You're covered. It wasn't dependent on that. They were friends besides for that, maybe even in spite of that. So then that's a deep friendship. You could get something out of being friendly with your wife. You could. It's just not, it can't be dependent on that. And that's a job that everybody has to have. A job is to work on loving the person rather than loving what you're getting out of her. And that takes time to protect, that takes time to work on. Let's do one more. Any machlekes that is l'shem shemayim, soifel hiskayim, will eventually be miskayim. Rav brings two explanations for this. One of them is that it will eventually come to fruition. You'll come to the truth. So let's say machlekes b'shama beis Hillel, the Mishna is going to say, they wanted the truth, so they eventually got the truth. If it's not l'shem shemayim, is not going to be miskayim in the eventually. So ezu machlekes l'shem shemayim, zu machlekes Hillel b'shama, v'she'ein l'shem shemayim, zu machlekes Perek v'chaladasei. That's the machlekes with Kairach. And eventually they didn't come to they didn't get what they wanted. They wanted leadership and everything like that, and they ended up dead. His first explanation is, I forgot it. One second. Let me just quickly check it up. I forgot what it was. Oh yes, the opinions. You care about them even after the machlekes is over. Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel, we still handle what Beis Shammai's opinion is. But by Kairach, we're not handling their opinion. Once the truth is out, that opinion is gone. Nobody's handling now the opinion of socialism, these opinions are gone. They weren't based on truth. Well, okay, I shouldn't have said socialism. True, whoever grown. But choose one of the other ones.
Should be gone.
Right.
Should be gone.
Yeah. So choose one of the other isms that expired completely. So once they're gone, they're gone. Masha'en came, Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel, we're still handling them even afterwards. I once heard of art, why does it say machlekes Kairach v'chol adasai? It doesn't say, like by Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel, it says the two arguers. There's Hillel on one side, Shammai on the other, they had a machlekes. By Kairach v'chol adasai, who is the other side? There's Kairach and his cohorts and Moshe Rabbeinu. How come it doesn't say Moshe Rabbeinu? The teretz is, the Mishnah means Kairach and his Adasa. It was Kairach on one side, the Adasa on the other. Why? Because when you have people fighting against the authorities, and the only reason they want it is for their own kavod, so each person is really fighting his own fight. Kairach's 250 men, it was 250 separate fights. I want my kavod, I want my kavod, I want my kavod. You had 250 men fighting for their own kavod. There wasn't a team. It wasn't Beis Shammai versus Beis Hillel. It wasn't Moshe versus Kairach. It was 250 people in fighting, and they attacked together, Moshe Rabbeinu, in fighting. So that's why it says Kairach v'chol adasai. It's a cute part. I don't know if it's Pashup Pshat. Pashup Pshat is that Moshe Rabbeinu, Chazal probably did a favor to Moshe Rabbeinu and didn't list them together with Kairach. That's the Pashtus. But it's a nice word, Al Kapanim. I don't know who says it, so. Okay, we'll stop over here. Continuing on. Yesterday, we discussed Ba'arichus, Siyata Dishmaya, the dinim of, we discussed Ba'arichus, the Reb Chaim. Reb Chaim explained, Mamish B'tuv Tam V'das, the Yesoid that you need to have two qualifications, the Shittas Rambam at least, is that you need to have two qualifications in order to be considered a Rishus HaYachid. A, you need airspace, and B, you need usable space, you need usable space of 4x4, and B, you need ground space of 4x4. And we continued the discussion this morning. We'll put it on pause for now. The question is, so that's the Shittas Rambam. Where is the source for this? Says the Reb Chaim, because there's a Yerushalmi, which we happen to have seen brought down in our Rashba. The Yerushalmi states that you need to have a Roiv. Roiv, says Reb Chaim, only helps for ground space. Because you don't need a physical, usable space. Usable space, you need a metzius. You need ground space. So Revah is going to help for that. As for usable space, that you have the Gemara and Erevin that says that put a sheet there and you have usable space. That's Reb Chaim. So we wanted to know, how does Tosfos deal with the Yerushalmi? That's question number one. Is Pshat just that he argues? He says, Bavli argues in Yerushalmi, I'm not responsible for every Yerushalmi. That's one mahalach. We'll discuss it in a minute. And the second question we had was the Rashba's proof to the Yerushalmi. The Rashba brings down a Gemara that's coming up that says, a Kuf Amud Aleph, that discusses if you have a pit that's 8 by 4, you split it down the middle, and that's now 3.9 by 4 times 2. Says the Gemara, it's not a Rishus Yachid anymore. If you count walls, then why don't you count that? If you count walls, then count it. So says the Rashba, Raya, that the Bavli also holds the Yerushalmi. So Raya, the Bavli holds the Yerushalmi. What does Tosfos do with this Raya? It sounds like a bomb Raya.
Could we say Raya again? Sorry, I couldn't hear my screen. It froze.
Sure. The case is you have a bar, a pit in Rosh Hashanah that is 8 by 4.
Oh, sorry, I said a bias case. I don't know what we're talking about. So a bias case of proof that I got it. I couldn't hear a word of that.
It's a proof to the Yerushalmi.
Unless, however, we said maybe there's a chiluk as far as Rabbi a few days ago. Maybe there's a chiluk whether because it's not above the ground.
Yeah, okay. We're going to discuss. So how does Tosfos respond to this proof? But that's the Rashba brings this as a proof to the Yerushalmi, and Taki the Rashba paskins like the Yerushalmi. So does the Rambam, maybe from this proof as well. So the question is, how does Tosfos respond to this proof? Because I just told you, you want to tell me that the Rashba, no, we'll say Tosfos argues. Tosfos says the Yerushalmi argues. I'm not responsible for every Yerushalmi. And you're going to find me a Zohar? I don't go with Zohars. I don't go to the Yerushalmis. If you want to say that, you can't. Because you have the case of Abaye. Abaye sounds like he is going with the Yerushalmi. So that was the question that we have to deal with today. There's two possible ways we can approach this question. There's two possible ways we can approach this question. Way number one, we can approach this question, and Joel mentioned this mahalach this morning. In order to help us, I'm going to bring up our whiteboard again.
So Rabbi, just in reference, or you could save like your whiteboards.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Like Rabbi had like some good pictures like one day, like a bunch, maybe save it and like just like draw it every time.
Always to redraw it, just because it's like people see it happening as it goes. So.
I hear. So also like for Seder, like I always have to maybe like we have like from yesterday, like I could have been helpful today. Like I had to save me time from drawing it. I don't know if it's
okay.
Whatever.
Let's talk about the classic case before we go into any pits. The classic case is a box on top of Rosh Hashanah that is exactly 4 by 4 and 10 high. This top is a Rosh Hashanah, as a Rosh Hashanah, it's 4 by 4, 10 high, until we realize that it's actually an open-topped box. This open-topped box is now 1, 2, and 1. It is not a Rosh Hashanah before we come along with a concept called, you could have placed a board on top of this box. This is the concept that is introduced to us from Maseches Erevin. Now that we put this magical board on top of the box, what happens? You're able to use Dalet al Dalet. Now, we have to understand. Let's put a pause on the narrative right here and explain what happened. In order to explain what happened, I'm going to ask the question that Rabbi Baral asked. He asked the following question. We learned Maseches Shabbos already for a while. We know there's such a thing called Kluta. We know there's such a thing called Choykikin Lahashlim. Chaykikin l'hashlim is if you need to imagine that there's a hole in the wall here, you're able to imagine a hole in the wall. Kluta means if you need to imagine that it's frozen in midair, you're able to imagine that it's frozen in midair. The common denominator between those two are that they are imaginary, and they are held by Shita Yehudas. Rabbi Akiva is the one person who says Kluta, and Rabbi Meir is the one person who says Chaykikin, and we don't paskin like both of them. So how come this imaginary board, Rabbi Baral, everybody goes with? It's a das. It's a Stam Gemara and Erevin. It's quite a not Kuli Alma, but it's halacha lemaisa. So how come we go with this svara, this imaginary svara, and we don't do chaykikin l'hashlim imaginary svara? It's so unfair. Do we use our halachic glasses or not? This is just as imaginary as chaykikin l'hashlim. Chaykikin l'hashlim you dig out, and here you put a board.
I mean,
imagine you go to sleep and your wife asks, "What are you doing?" I'm building a sukkah in my head. I have chaykikin here. I got a board here. Put some lavud, good asik, toifen akuma, chlavet rami. Boom! I have a whole sukkah. All with my brain. So mechatesi to go with chaykikin over here. That was his question. The answer to the question is going to help us understand as follows. The answer to the question is, chaykikin l'hashlim is a real use of imagination. We need somebody to mute. It's a real use of imagination. That's what chaykikin l'hashlim is. It's not, you really need to see an in-depth and you really need to see something that is okay. Somebody's making a lot of noise.
We always have, with every Shehiyachah, we say Shehiyachah goes ala rakia, so we already have a concept of things that are not there being there, at least as far as how we look at the Rishus. That's not such a foreign concept when it comes to Shehiyachah.
Okay, well, chaykikin l'hashlim, we don't say that. Chaykikin l'hashlim also. Why don't we say chaykikin l'hashlim? If you have a very thick wall, then that's only daled by daled. Rabbi Meir says that it's a Rishus Yachid. I'm saying, so why didn't you say it there?
Why can't you dig out and make it Rishus Yachid?
Yeah, let's say this is a wall.
I don't know. That's kind of getting to what we were arguing before. Maybe you could.
Well, this is a sukkah already. If this is a wall, and this is a 1 by 10. Rabbi Meir says this is a Rishus Yachid, because imagination, you could see this. Mechtesi. What?
One more time. You just dig a hole in the ground, one nama.
You're walking in Rishus Rabbim, and there's a little cleft in the wall over here. Rabbi Meir says that's a Rishus Yachid.
So which view is this? This is just a hole in the wall, like you're walking.
Yeah, let's just accept chaykikin l'hashlim. I don't want to get into the sugya of chaykikin l'hashlim here. But it requires imagination. Over here, you don't.
Well, it sounds like over there you're imagining to take something away that's already there.
Yes, that is true.
Well, this is not. We're putting something that's not there. We're not taking away something.
What's the difference? What's the difference?
Yeah. Much easier to,
I disagree.
Destroy. I don't know.
No.
I'm saying it's definitely a chiluk. I think a chiluk wise is different, but it's not the same thing.
No, I'm not masking. I think it's easier to do this than that.
Okay.
And the answer to the question is as follows. Over here, you don't really need a board. You don't really need the board. You need usable space. That's what you need. I need usable space. Somebody calls you up and says, hey, I have a massive inventory of Clorox wipes. If I wait another week, I could sell them for $50 each. Can I store them in your backyard? And you say, okay. Do you have any space in your backyard? Or you look out your window. Do you look at the ground or do you look at the air? No, I have pretty much, you can go up to about the stratosphere in my backyard. I'm looking at the space. I don't really need the board. The area that's actually helping me is the space on top. This is what I need. Now, your skeptic is going to say, well, you can't use this without the board. The board is there just to answer the skeptic. It's not really needed. It's there to say, well, you can, but the reality is I need dalet al dalet of space, of usable space. I have it. If they had drones back in the time of the Gemara, the question would not have been asked.
Because you don't actually need the board.
You don't need the board. It's just to answer the skeptic. Well, how are you using it? If it's not, I have a board. Fine, I have a board. It's not. You don't really need an imaginary thing. That's why this is L'Kuli Alma. It's just to answer the skeptic. How are you going to put the red box there if you don't have a thing? We're not in the Dur Basra yet. Teretz is, yeah, you have a board. So it's not actually needed. That's what that's what the board is there for. This is important, and I'll tell you why. This conversation that we just had is important because of the following hara. Again, what we're trying to do is we're trying to answer Tosfos's what is Tosfos's response to the Rashba's raya that the Bavli holds with the Yerushalmi. That's the Rashba's raya the Bavli holds with the Yerushalmi. Don't tell me they argue. The Rashba also knew how to learn. And he also knew you could say the Bavli argues in the Yerushalmi. He comes in, he says the Bavli doesn't argue in the Yerushalmi. I'll prove it to you from Abaya. So what does Tosfos respond? Tosfos says, now you could say this. I was mocked in that. Tosfos could say as follows. 1 second. 1 second. How you need 4 amas of 4 tvachim of space, right? You need 4 tvachim of space. So, in order to get 4 tvachim of space, you have to put the board there. If you have to put the board there, then that's only going to help for the area on top. You can't get into here. It's not going to help for inside the bar. So now,
Tosfos won't even hold its churi.
We'll get to churi in a second. We'll get to churi in a second. You can't tell me that it's going to help on top. You can't tell me that it's going to make it inside. Because the only helps because you have dalet amas airspace. In order to make dalet amas airspace, you need to have 4 by 4. You need to have 4 by 4. Do you have 4 by 4 airspace? Over here you do. Memela, here it's a Rishus HaYachid. Here you don't have 4 by 4. How much do you have? 2 by 2. In this case, it's not Rishus HaYachid.
It's like, it has to be that's not chori, because then why would you be putter in the Abai's case? You'd be still not. So it has to be that it's not going to be chori by it.
Well, this is the Rashba's kasha. I'm saying you're saying over the Rashba's kasha.
What do you mean? I'm saying in this shot, meaning Tosfos could say everyone's saying Tosfos that the Tosfos is saying you're putter because it's still Rishus Harabim. This is Rishus Harabim. No, is that what you're saying? There's or Malcolm Tour or whatever. Carmelis maybe. I think because I should let Rabbi finish first, then.
Yeah, they're
on a little bit.
Let's start a quick point. Bullet points from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
There is a Gemara in Eruvin that says that if you have a keli that is 4 in total, including the walls, it is a Rishus HaYachid. Rambam does not paskin like that. That was Reb Chaim yesterday. Question is, how is that possible? The Gemara in Eruvin is actually talking about the case of the spike. Says the Gemara because you have this concept that it is usable airspace by putting the board on top. It is usable airspace by putting the board on top. And by putting the board on top, you have your 4 tvachim space that you need. Frek the Rashba, I have a Yerushalmi that says that you only use that svara if it's thick walls, if you have roiv also. And if you want to tell me that the Babli argues in the Yerushalmi, then I have a bomb cash on you. Because there's a Gemara that's called Abaye on Kuf Amud Aleph that says that when you have a bar, you do not use the wall that's inserted into the middle of the bar. Proof, says the Rashba, that, sorry, you don't use this svara unless you have roiv. End the story, says the Rashba. Rashba says it's back on that ches, he says it over here, in Avodas HaKodesh, he says it everywhere. So, Rashba wants to prove that the Babli holds of the Yerushalmi. We cannot just patter ourselves up by saying, very nice you have Yerushalmi, because we have to answer this case. So what are we going to do? How do we answer the case? The way I'm answering it is by saying that the svara indeed only helps for the area above the bar. The svara only helps for the area above the bar, and I'm explaining it very well. Before we answer the kasha, before we get to chayre, the halacha is that you need air space, you need usable space of 4x4. And the only place I have space is on top of it, 4x4. Memela, Taisus is going to say, Rashba, I only said this case is a Rishus Harabim because of the board. But if you don't have the board, for example, inside, Memela, that's not a Rishus Harabim. So now Abaye's case, which you're quoting to me, which was a bar in Rishus Harabim, where you split it down the middle, even if it's true, says the Gemara, that you put a board on top, that's only going to help for the top. And Abaye was talking about this mat in between, which is inside. So there's no kasha. Your whole svara that it's a Rishus Yachid is about on top. I'm talking, and Abaye is talking about inside. There's mamish no kasha. Tzorachin, what the Rashba even meant.
Well, assuming the Rashba is assuming, well, depends if you hold the inside, it's chore.
Okay, well, before we get to chore, let's just get the basics.
I mean, I think at the basics, I mean, that's basically what it comes down to, though. That's the chiluk, because...
Can it be the Kal Chaimer?
Basically, Rabbi saying the din is on the inside, to then determine whether, because that's the case of Abaye, where he puts it on the inside.
So let's just get it clear. So we want to say that Taisus holds that the svara only helps for on top. The svara does not help for inside. The Rashba held that the svara helps for inside. Okay, that's the machlekes. So the Rashba feels he has a raya, and Taisus knocks off the raya. Perek gave Bakasha. We know that if you have a Rishus HaYachid, and you have kitchen shelves, or you have a kitchen drawer, you put a cup on the shelf. Did you just put something down in Rishus HaYachid? I'll tell you, no. It's not 4x4 wide. It's not 4x4, 10 high. What's the answer? No, once you have a Rishus HaYachid, so then anything that's off the Rishus HaYachid is called Choyre Rishus HaYachid. It's a hole in Rishus HaYachid. Of course, it's still a Rishus HaYachid. Okay? So it's called Choyre Rishus HaYachid.
The Chazanish, no?
What?
Chazanish.
Well, no. We're going to...
That's a separate thing.
Away from that. We're getting there. So, the question is, so very nice Taisvis that you have Choyre. So very nice Taisvis that you want to say that the only place that this svara affects is the top of it, but after the top becomes a Rishus HaYachid, don't you think it should spill into? There you go. Don't you think it should spill into here? Once the top is Rishus HaYachid, so then it should spill down. It's called. This is what Gabe is asking. In fact, this is probably what the Rashba meant also. The Rashba knows that the svara only helps for on top, but eventually it spills down in there. So now the Rashba is good, and Taisus is shver. What happened to Chayre?
It's not chore.
How could it not be Chayre?
We spoke about a few days. It's like the regular case in our Mishna, our sugya. What is the din of inside the bar? How do we look at
What's the din taka? Why don't
Is
you
it
say
Chori or is it maybe it's Makam Tor, maybe it's Karmelis, maybe
Why?
it's somehow
Why?
Rosh Hashanah?
But why? Let it be chayre.
Because it's not. What do you mean?
It is chayre. If this is Rosh Hashanah and this is open to it, so why can't you say chayre?
Because not everything is Chori. Everything that touches Yachid is Chori.
Why not? Only things that are blue? Anything that's open.
It's because can't be a Makam Tor. It's like everything that sticks out extension is.
Yeah. Once it's here, this whole area be chayre. For example, if you have a box and there's a tiny little hole in the box, this is going to be chayre Rosh Hashanah. Why not? Once you have a Rosh Hashanah, bona fide Rosh Hashanah, let it sink down and say Rosh Hashanah.
Well, if we're saying it's literally you put the board on top, then the board is dividing that area from the Rosh Hashanah.
Oh, tazeh.
So it's not the same thing.
Oh, tazeh. Zot Gabe, and Joel said the same thing today. Mamish mechavan. You realize what's going on here. Your mamish, unbelievable. Okay? Siyata d'shmaya. The amount of incredible siyata d'shmaya that's going on during this pandemic is abnormal. Says Gabe, you can't say Chayr Rosh Hashanah here. Chayr Rosh Hashanah here. Because there is a big wall over here. Theoretical, but it's there.
Especially because that's what we're saying Pshat is now, because the board makes a difference.
Well, that's what you're saying.
So you say it's even more. It's not. You can always say that, but especially whatever.
No, what do you mean especially now? This is the only time you could say it. Generally, you can say there's a board here. But here, since the only way it works is by putting a board there, the board makes a hefsek. So now, who's right? Tosfos is right. So we started off with a kasha, bomb kasha from the Rashba. We said, Pshat in the Sorachin Rashba, of course it only works to the top. We invented chayre. So then we said, Adrab, the Rashba is right. But now we said, 1 second, but the board is there. So Tosfos is right. Are we good? Do we have any thumbs up? Okay. Anybody else a thumbs up? You gotta have at least 2 thumbs. Now we're saying, no, you know what?
Why don't we say chore in the bottom? Only in sides, not in base, not on floors?
No, we should. That's what we said. That's probably pshat on the Rashba. So now it's shver on Tosfos. Tosfos, why don't you say chayre? So Taka, what's pshat? We were asking this kasha. And
what's the answer?
What?
What's the answer?
Because you can't say chayre because this board is here. The only way you were able to say this is usable is by putting a board there. So the board creates a hefsek.
We know they don't. We know chore don't. I mean, we know walls don't create hefsek. You can dig into it.
No.
That's because there's a hole.
Yeah.
If you cover up the hole, let's say you block the hole up, who says that becomes chore? There's a hole in your wall, you cover it up.
Right.
That was just a random hole in the wall that you can't see. Maybe it's not chore, it's not connected, you just blocked it off.
Right.
So over here, you block it off by putting a board on top, but how can you say underneath chore?
Right. Let's say
always
this,
where it's connected, like it's a little hole in the wall, you can stick your finger in there. But if you can't, then why would it be chore? Maybe it's not chore anymore.
Correct. Here is, let's say, a hole in the wall that is 2 by 8. That's not chayre because it's not attached to your Rosh Hashanah, which is over here. Only if it's fully attached do we say, oh, that's even though it's 2 by 8, it's a chayre Rosh Hashanah. So now, Adrabah, we're back shver on the Rashba. We're back shver on the Rashba. There is a board over here. Anybody?
Oh, there's.
Teretz is, we started off today by saying a conversation that we had with Mr. Baral. It's not a real board.
Mm-hmm.
The real board was just to answer, the board is just to answer the skeptics of how you're supposed to use it. This doesn't require any mental gymnastics or magical. You don't need David Copperfield for this. This is just plain old answering the skeptics. How are you going to use it if it's not there? Teretz says, I could use it. Theoretically, I could use it. Okay, so theoretically you can use it. So Mamela, you can count yourself as having a Rishus HaYachid from side to side.
It's more fair and toast because Lamaisa, we don't have a board, right?
You don't have a board.
There is no board, but we're gonna.
But
theoretically, there is the board, so therefore, wouldn't make a call.
That it's choikikin. Please tell me if you learn that it's a real thing. So then I understand the kasha. Then I understand, like, okay, Lamaisa, theoretically it's there, so you can't use it and not use it. But now that we're telling you you're not really using it, it's just an answer to, like, how are you going to use the area above your grass if you don't have a thing there? Tarek says, okay, I could get a board. And I told you that if they invented drones, they wouldn't have even asked the kasha. How are you going to use it? I'll use it with my drone. You don't need it there. It's just a way to get something up there. It's not real.
And that's part of the reason why the Rashba holds that you need Omeid Ala, what's it, Halal, right? Because you need it to be more of there's an actual board across, but more to that you could say that because he holds you, there's no board across.
No. Let's not get
why not?
Let's not get confused. The Rashba holds that there's two separate conditions. You need the Yerushalmi for one thing, you need the Babli for another thing. The Rashba agrees to everything we're saying. Everything we're saying, the Rashba agrees to.
But so
nothing. There's another condition of Roiv that exists in the Yerushalmi.
So that's in Rechaim, at least.
What? According to Rechaim, well, that's how we're going.
I'm just saying maybe you don't even need to. I'm saying maybe you don't need to say that. Okay, fine, never.
No. It's Lennius Nice is the only way to explain the Rashba. I mean, obviously you can go with your own pshat, but I don't have another pshat on the Rashba. How you could, because he's saying you need both. He's mamish saying it. He's saying you only say the Gemara and Erevin when you have the Yerushalmi. He's mavur that he's learning them together.
Yeah, think about it.
Okay, so now who's fair? We just erased that line. So we're back to saying that you should say chayrei. We're back to saying you should say chayrei. Right? So we have this. Let's go through the steps again. We have a Gemara in Erevin which says that you put the board there. We have a Yerushalmi who says that you only do that with Roiv. We have a possibility to say that it's a machlekes. We have the Rashba who says, no, don't say it's a machlekes, have a raya from Abaye. We have Tosfos who says, you can't bring me a raya from Abaye because this whole svara only works for the top of the board. For the top of the top of that board. It doesn't work inside. We have Gabe who asked, what happened to chayrei? So the Rashba is right. We have this answer also from Gabe that there's a board on top. You can't say chayrei. We have Mr. Baral who said the board is fake. You could say chayrei.
Well, so you would say in Tosfos so that the board, we're trying to be consistent. The board is, we have to say Ki'ilu, there's a board to say that we can go up, right, to now make the above the Rishus HaYachid. So we also have to say the board is Machalik to not make it Chorei.
Excellent. There's going to be a machlekes over here between exactly how to be magdir the board. That's going to be the machlekes between the Rashba and Tosfos. And whether or not you could bring a raya from Abaye that the Babli holds the Yerushalmi or not. The Rashba holds, this is the final stop. The Rashba holds like we said already. The board is fake. It's there just to answer the skeptics. And Memela, Avadai, it's the end, you're right. This is the Dalet al Dalet that's in use. And you should say chayrei. Nevertheless, Abaye, so it should go down. Nevertheless, Abaye doesn't. Obviously, the Babli holds with the Yerushalmi, and you also need Roiv for a different reason. And that's where the Rashba's train stops. Rashba has a good raya. The board is there. The board is not there, we keep saying. It's not choikikin over here. It's not magic. The board is there to answer the skeptics. There's nothing that's preventing chayrei from descending into the bar. And from the fact that the Babli doesn't say it, in Abaye's case, is a proof that in that case you don't say it. Why wouldn't you say it? Because you also need another condition called the Yerushalmi.
The Maskani is going to say what he said, which is that you only say Malach Lemidi when you have Rov.
Correct. It's a Yerushalmi, there's a Bavli, yeah, but I'm showing you the Bavli holds to the same thing from Abaye. There's a board there, so it doesn't say it only works for the top. You're right, but you say Chayre. But there's a board there, the board's not real. Mr. Bara. So what does Taisus hold? Taisus, there's a couple different schlois you can say it in. However you like to say it. Taisus is going to have to hold that Lamaisa, it's going to be a stira. Not that the board, I don't think he's going to go ahead and argue on what we said, that the board is real. I don't think anybody holds the board as real.
Real halacha, no?
What?
We can say it's a real halacha. I mean, we also
Just
know
give me
whenever-
Pesach,
no one
Hashnei
by-
Asifim.
Yeah, that's the board it's going to be. What do you mean by lalacha? What do you mean, Gabe?
No, say meaning. I mean, kluta's not. We don't say it's. We don't. No one to say it's actually on the ground.
No,
And
there's a
It's
shayla.
not actually. I mean, it's in there. We say ki'ilu, it's on there.
It's filling
We
over
say
here.
ki'ilu, there's a board.
There's a
And
shayla.
we're consistent. A board to make the rishus above it work because there's no concept of drones, right? I mean, there was nothing drones,
Right.
and there's also enough to block it from being chori beneath. If I'm saying anything different, or
I don't. Yeah, this is basically what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
The yisoid is going to have to be that where is the Rishus HaYachid? Where is the Rishus HaYachid? The Rishus HaYachid is on top. That's where the Rishus HaYachid is. Rishus HaYachid is on top. If the Rishus HaYachid is on top, then it must be that you're considering it usable space. If you're considering it usable space, you cannot allow Chayre to go down. Because if Chayre is going down, if Chayre is going down, then you are effectively saying that it's not there. It's the by saying Chayre, it's dactistic. It's very similar, if not the same thing, and just saying nunu. But you can't allow Chayre to work and then still say, I'm using the airspace. Because by allowing Chayre to work, you are in effect making a stira and saying that I'm taka in midair. I'm not sure. I tried to get to the bottom and to figure out if this is just saying it in a drop of a different oifen. It might be, and then the machlikas between Taisus and the Rashba will be whether or not this board is what we'll call real or not. I don't like to say that it's real like anybody. I want to say even according to Taisus, it's not real. But you can't use both. If you want to try to nusachize it in a manner that it's more palatable to you, you have every rishus to do it. If you want to say that I'm not saying any difference, and I'm saying that the machlekes is whether or not the board is real or not, that's taking the machlekes between Rashba and Ritva and Taisus. I allow you to do that also, but I think there's a slight doctoristic difference in the way we're saying it. And the original way we said it, which is that, hey, you have a board there, so Mamela, it can't go down. No, it's not a real board. But even though it's not a real board, you cannot go ahead and use both and say that they're both Rishus Harabim, because that's a stira. That's a drop of a different nusach to say it. And
I know, but
let's just finish, guys. Mamela, that's the machlekes between the Taisus and the Rashba. The machlekes is whether or not everybody kept asking from the beginning of the beginning. Does it go down? Does it go down? Does it go down? The answer is it's a machlekes Rashba and Taisus. Rashba holds it goes down, Taisus holds it doesn't go down. Based on that machlekes, the Rashba feels he has a raya from Abaye, and Taisus says no raya. Okay. One more point, a very quick point. And using this point, we can indeed say that a different answer to the Rashba's kasha okay, it's just a different answer to the Rashba's kasha. That's it, we can deal with it. It's Yitachar Ma'oid. Somebody mentioned the svara Now imagine this is a side view of. Okay, let's just start from the beginning. Hopefully we won't keep anybody too long today. Here's your Rishus Rabbim. Okay, your Rishus Rabbim. Here is your Rishus. Here is your pit. This is the pit of Abaye. This is the Rashba's Kasha. It's completely below ground level. 8 by 4, and there is a hefsek in the middle. Frek the Rashba, if you go, there's a side view, so we cut the side of the Rishus Rabbim. Frek the Rashba, if you go with inclusive, that the walls are included, so then this is really continuously an 8 by 4. Include the walls. I'm not sure. So we had when learning Taisus, Messiah, Taisus said something. Taisus said that if you want to use the svara of Meseches Erevin, where it's 4 by where the walls are considering it are including it into 4, says Taisus, it's talking about a specific case where the chulyos are above 10. Where the chulyos are above 10. Why did Taisus say that? Taisus said that because he wanted that when you put it on top of the chulya, you should be chayev. What does that mean? What happens if it's below 10? What happens if it looks like this? What happens if it looks like this? And here is your airspace. Why wouldn't we say that there also? The Maisa from the inside of the pit, it's 10, and put these two together, it's 4. So we said a svara when we read Tosfos, because the vort might be when I go ahead and I put a board on top. If you put the board on top, then you basically just have a little bump in Rosh Hashanah. So that's why Taisa says you need it to be 10 high, because now that you put the board on top, you have a nice 10 by 4. If that is a true svara, then there's no kasha at all from the Rashba. Because if you go ahead and you put a board on top like Rashba wants, then you have effectively just covered over your pit and you have nothing. This is the Chazon Ish's teretz to the Rashba's kasha. He said, hello, if you put a board here, you have nothing. You only are allowed to use the board theory if it's 10 off the ground. I don't know why he doesn't bring a raya from Tosfos. He says it by himself. You can only use this if it's 10 off the ground. You can't use this if it's over here. Mamela no kasha at all. And once you see this in Tosfos, it becomes so pashut. I don't know why we start with anything else. There's a machlekes Rashba and Tosfos whether or not you're allowed to put the board over here or not. Rashba holds yes, and therefore there's a raya from Abaya. Tosfos clearly holds no. So end the story. Nobody should be fighting. There's a machlekes whether or not this svara applies. And Mamela, are you forced to say that the Rishami holds at the bottom? So that's that. Mitch, tomorrow we'll go back there. Yes, Mitch.
Isn't there a problem with that?
Why?
Because that's 2 by 8. It's in Loved. What if it's 5 by 5?
Doesn't matter.
4 by 5. Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Not a bump. It's more. Isn't a bump only because there's Loved?
Yeah, no. But so it's a mukim tour. Until you have it 10 by 4, it's not going to be a Rosh Hashanah though.
Oh, right. From inside it's Rosh Hashanah. Okay.
No, depending on how big. The inside is definitely not Rosh Hashanah because it's not 4 wide. It's only 4 wide with the chulios. This over here is 2. This over here is 2. This is 1. And this is 1.
I thought the koyach of the Rashba was that he was saying that because the machzalas is able to be used as part of a mechitza, then it should be able to be included within the.
That is what he's saying.
Meaning it's isn't there like a kal v'chomer that the mechitza itself is what's it called? Because
that's
it
going to
says
be
it makes a machitza, it doesn't make for itself its own rishus yachid.
that's going to be a Gemara in Amud Beis that says that if you have a mechitza and inside the mechitza there is a bona fide rishus hayachid, so then what happens if you put it on top over here? What happens if you put something over here? That the Gemara says that if a kal v'chomer, if it works for the inside, it works for here. But over here, it's not working for the inside without this svara. You can't use that svara without this svara. That's if you have an inside. That's a whole different sugya. The kal v'chomer sugya. Here we're talking about where it's not creating a rishus yachid, because inside is not a rishus yachid unless you use magic. Once you use magic, then I mean.
Right.
Go ahead.
Another question. The whole din you said of the imagination was to say really the usable space is airspace,
Yeah.
but the board is echetimsa. So if you're using that, how do you have churei rishus hayachid at all if it's just air? You're using airspace.
No, if I care. If I have that svara, then Adrab, we were explaining the Rashba with that. Once we're saying that, then we're explaining how the Rashba could say chayre even after we need the board there.
No, you can't say chayre anymore because there's no board there.
No, the chayre, that's exactly
the airspace.
No, but since
there's airspace, not a board.
No, since there's no board there for real, so the airspace, so the rishus hayachid airspace extends down. That's exactly what chayre is. Imagine the brown is airspace of rishus hayachid. So if there's a board there, it stops right there. But if there's no board, the board is gone. So then adraba, it's going to extend straight down.
But you said as far that all the board you need is hechetimsa how you could use it.
I still hold that.
What the rishus hayachid is the airspace.
Right.
That's what you said.
Yeah.
So it's the airspace. So how do you have chorei? You can't have chorei if you have airspace.
No, adraba, mamish, it works like that. If this is this part was airspace, right? This part was the airspace part.
Yeah.
You see my mouse? So because it's airspace, it extends down. Why shouldn't it extend down?
Because you have to be above 10. You can't extend it. You have to be airspace could be above 10.
No, anywhere in anything. Imagine you have a house. Here's your house, and there's a little hole. There's a little hole in the floor of the house. Azoi. That's rishus hayachid.
I agree, but again,
why? Because this is rishus hayachid, so this is rishus hayachid. So to over here, this is rishus hayachid, so this is rishus hayachid. Let it go down. Once you have a bona fide rishus hayachid, it should extend.
But is it airspace that goes down, or the walls are just covered? It's part of the floor.
Whatever it is, rishus hayachid spreads like corona.
Okay. Have you written this up that you can send it?
This, I'm in the middle of it.
Okay.
I could try. I doubt I'll be able to finish today. It's going to be a busy day. But
Can you send what you have?
it's completely illegible as of now.
Okay. Sure.
All right.
When's the meeting today?
2:00. Bezrat Hashem.
Wow. Exciting. Looking forward.
I told somebody.
Just make sure you have Fox News on.
Yeah. I told somebody you should daven. He's like, where should I daven?
I just got a good day.
Have a great one.
Sure.